What's up YouTube? My name's Tony and today we're shooting from the gorgeous Risque Disc Records. Today we're going to be taking a look at the DBX 160. So DBX 160 is a classic compressor that you'll find in almost any high-end studio. It is a solid-state, single-channel compressor, and it was designed with a feed-forward circuit design to make the attack and release on these units incredibly quick. Because of that, they're best suited towards percussion, bass guitars, and even vocals to an extent. But I've used them on not only those things that I mentioned, but guitars, keyboards, synthesizers, pianos, pretty much everything. The DBX 160 has gone through a lot of different design changes throughout the years, including the DBX 165, which added an attack and release setting, as well as an auto attack and release button that you can press to make it act a lot more like the original 160. Later on in the 80s, it was redesigned to remove the VU meter in place of LED metering, and was renamed the 160X. There were three different redesigns of the 160X, the 160X, XT, and A. These units with the different suffixes are all exactly the same, except the X was made in California, the XT was made in Boston, and the 160A was redesigned to be machine-made rather than handmade. The 160X also includes an option to install a transformer, but did not come stock with that transformer. And the 163, which is a one rack space, half-sized unit with a single slider on the front. The 163X is quite a bit slower than the other 160 models, but I'm still interested to see how it stacks up with all the other ones. Recently, a lot of plug-in companies have been creating products that model old pieces of analog gear, and I've always wondered how these plugins stack up against the real thing. So today, as well as comparing several different versions of the DBX 160 hardware, we're going to be comparing those to the DBX 160 plugin by Waves. So to test and compare all these different versions of the DBX 160, I'm going to start by running a kick drum recording through each of the different units, then we'll do a snare drum through each of the different units, and then a bass guitar through each of the different units, and see exactly how they all stack up. Well guys, hit up the comment section down below and let me know what you thought of all these examples. Personally, I found the original DBX 160 VU to be the most full and round sounding in the low end, with a great snap that just really accentuated those drum parts. I also found that compared to all the other units, it brought out a lot more of the aggression and bite in the bass guitar, but also compared to the other units, it sounded considerably more dull in the high end. The plugin did sound very similar to the original unit, although as I said, it was much brighter in the high end and it didn't quite match the low end content of our 160 in the rack. Now, one of the things with analog gear versus plugins is that every piece of analog gear is going to sound slightly different, based on how long it's been since it was built and calibrated, the life it's lived, was it in a smoke-free studio or not. So that could just be the difference between my unit here and the unit that Waves was using to model this plugin after. And that same thing goes with all of these other units that we tested out. But personally, I found the 165 set to the automatic function and the 160A to sound very similar, and the two of them, to me, sounded more similar to the plugin than the original 160 VU. The DBX 163 has a much slower attack and release time, which kind of makes it a completely different monster from the rest of the 160s. But it still very much had the character of compression that the other units had. While I would use either the 160 or the 165s on percussion and be perfectly happy with it, I found the 163 to be better suited to bass, and I often use it on electric guitars as well. The 160A I found to have a lot more of a modern sound than the VU, which makes sense considering the difference in its construction, but it still did a great job of keeping the character of the original. But as I said before, it didn't quite have the same low end as the 160 VU. To sum it all up, I think they're all fantastic units, but I think the original 160 VU still takes the cake on all of these. Waves did a great job of modeling this plugin, and I would recommend it to anybody who wants to get a 160 into their arsenal. Well, thank you so much for watching this video, guys. Let me know what you think of these examples down in the comments there. If you liked this video and would like to see more content like this one, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. Thanks again for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.